Ephraim Yoder wiped the sweat from his brow as he paused at the edge of the garden. The late summer sun cast warm light on the tilled rows, the soil rich and inviting. He turned to Salome Lapp, who held a basket of freshly picked herbs, and asked gently, "Have you planted everything yet? Or is there more to sow before the season's end?" Salome glanced thoughtfully at the earth beneath her feet. "I still have some radish seeds and beans to scatter," she replied, "but I wonder whether the soil is ready for the second wave." Ephraim smiled with quiet reassurance. "That is the very question we must answer by listening closely, not rushing." Nearby, Amos Stoltzfus approached, his hands calloused from years of tending the farm. "Tell us, Salome," he said, "what kind of land do we have this year? Is it sandy, black earth, or dotted with stones?" As the sun dipped lower, Miriam Byler joined the small circle by the vegetable beds. She was the community's keeper of knowledge, her memory a trove of wisdom passed from her grandmother and her grandmother before. "July's sowing is a sacred trust," Miriam began, her voice soft and steady. "This is when we plant the second wave, radishes quick to sprout, tender greens to refresh the table, late carrots that drink deep from the sun until frost, and beans that climb toward the heavens. Each crop holds its time and place." Her words hung in the air as Levi Zook, the tradition teller, nodded. "Patience with the soil is much like the patience we learn from prayer," Levi said, crossing his arms. "You cannot command the earth to grow swiftly any more than you can demand the Spirit to reveal itself on your schedule. Both require waiting with hope and attentiveness." Ephraim felt the truth settle in his chest, as firm as the soil they walked upon. Huldah Troyer, known for her quiet wisdom, stepped forward with a basket of freshly plucked greens. She offered a gentle reminder to the group. "The earth is a living teacher. We must not exhaust it with relentless toil, nor hurry its gifts. Each day we must tend the garden, show it kindness, water it with care, and rest beside it in the cool evenings." Ephraim looked at the rows awaiting new seeds, each patch a promise waiting to unfold. "To sow in July is to honor a rhythm older than ourselves," he said softly. "It calls for respect and trust that the unseen roots below will find their strength just as surely as morning light will return each day." As the others nodded in agreement, the shared quiet spoke of a deep bond between farmer and land. Ephraim Salome lifted a handful of radish seeds, her fingers cupped gently around them. "It amazes me how these tiny grains become crisp roots beneath the earth. The second wave is both a challenge and a blessing," she said, her voice filled with awe, "especially when the days grow hotter and the nights are shorter." Ephraim chuckled kindly. "Yes, radishes like cool weather and quick growth. But sowing them now teaches us about resilience. The roots will push down despite the heat if we guide them well." Amos grinned, adding a story of years past when a late bean crop had survived a drought by leaning toward the shadows. "It reminds us never to lose faith in the land's quiet strength, nor in our care." The group smiled, sharing in the hope that each careful step was already part of a larger harvest. The ritual of tending the garden each day became a symbol for the larger life Ephraim lived in the community. His hands, rough from years of labor, were steady as he explained to Huldah how this second planting was akin to nurturing faith within oneself and among neighbors. "Good things come slowly," he said. "If we push too hard, the soil will resist, just as the heart does when pressed beyond its limits. The garden and the spirit are both nurtured through patient attention." Huldah's eyes gleamed with recognition. "This calls for daily commitment, seeing value even when green shoots are not visible. Every moment spent caring is itself a seed sown into the future." Ephraim's mind drifted briefly to Obadiah King, the elder guiding their community, who often reminded them that the greatest gardens were those grown with gentleness and enduring faith. As evening shadows lengthened, the group lingered near the raised beds, sharing stories of planting and harvests past. Ephraim recalled how his grandmother taught him the delicate balance between work and waiting. "While the earth may seem silent, it is always speaking," he told Salome. "Our task is rather to listen." The second wave of sowing in July was neither rush nor burden, but a sacred act of harmony with the land's rhythms. The radishes, greens, late carrots, and beans promised not just nourishment for body, but a lesson in humility and trust. Ephraim knew that each day's gentle care was a prayer written by hands in soil and light. Night settled softly, and the garden rested under a blanket of stars. Ephraim stood quietly, hands folded over the soft earth, feeling the pulse of life beneath. The work of July's sowing was part of something larger, an ongoing story of respect, patience, and hope. The seeds planted now would stretch quietly beneath the warm soil, timing their growth to the seasons beyond human haste. With a final look at the rows prepared for planting, Ephraim's voice dropped to a whisper, meant only for the wind. "May we always honor the earth's rhythm, and may our hearts remain open to all the lessons it offers." The gentle promise of the second wave of planting lingered in the cool night air as the community prepared for the mysteries of coming days, ready to live in harmony with nature's enduring beat. Listening to the earth as a sacred practice. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves as Ephraim Yoder wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes gazing over the patch of earth freshly prepared for the next wave of planting. "Have you sown all your seeds, or is there still more waiting in the sack?" he asked Salome Lapp, who was carefully arranging rows of rich, dark soil near the barn. The question hung softly in the air, inviting reflection rather than haste. Nearby, Amos Stoltzfus nodded thoughtfully, examining a handful of earth with a practiced eye. "I say understanding our dirt is as important as understanding the seasons," Amos offered. "Is your land sandy, black with fertility, or dotted with stones?" Levi Zook, whose role as storyteller carried the weight of generations, began recalling the lessons passed down by the elders. July offers us a second chance in our gardens. It is the moment for sowing radishes that will brighten our tables, greens that will lend freshness to our meals, carrots that mature late yet nourish deeply, and beans to capture the warmth of the sun before the cool sets in. He glanced toward Miriam Byler, the keeper of knowledge, whose quiet assurance mirrored his calm voice. "The soil does not heed commands," Levi reminded gently. "It answers only to those who listen patiently, who respect its rhythms and needs." Hulda Troyer, the wise mentor, whose life had been threaded with the cycles of planting and reaping, stepped forward. "There is a sacred patience at work here," she said softly, her gaze steady and warm. "Our tending is not merely toil, but an act of devotion. Just as prayer unfolds with quiet persistence, so does the earth reward those who give it time and care without immediate expectation. Each day, as you turn and nourish the soil, you sow not just seeds, but faith." Her words wove a subtle harmony between the physical and spiritual worlds, a reminder that farming holds more than sustenance, it holds meaning. The conversation returned to practical truths as Salome sifted through seed packets under Obadiah King's watchful eye. "What we plant now," Obadiah began, "must be chosen with thought. Radish seeds flourish quickly, a reminder of life's swift gifts. Greens like kale and chard are steady, offering ongoing harvests. Late fall carrots need patience but yield sweetness unmatched. Beans cling to poles, reaching for sun as if in silent prayer themselves." His voice bore the calm confidence of a man who had seen many seasons turn, each demanding its own respect and care. Ephraim took a moment to run his fingers through the soil, feeling its texture, coolness, and subtle moisture. "The land speaks quietly," he murmured. "It never rushes us, even when we grow impatient." Salome smiled, reflecting the calm of the moment, and said, "Sometimes we plant with too much haste, trying to force the earth to meet our timetable. But the soil, like life, answers only to those who bend to its pace. Amos chimed in, "That is the power of listening deeply, so that what we do is not battle, but partnership." Together they nodded, understanding that patience was indeed a gift, a quiet strength. Miriam Byler stepped closer, her voice a soft thread weaving through the group's habit of attention. This second planting period is a lesson in humility and persistence. To sow in July is to trust that the warmth remains enough, that the rain will come as needed, and that the land has reserves within itself. We honor these gifts every time we wait, every time we walk softly across the garden, knowing our efforts are the beginning, not the end. Her words settled over them, a quiet benediction, affirming the sacred work of tending earth. Under Obadiah's guidance, the gardeners discussed the best ways to nourish the soil for these later crops. "Compost is a blessing," he explained. "It returns to the earth what the plants have given us in past seasons. It keeps the earth alive, vibrant, and ready to receive. Without it, the soil tires and our crops suffer." Ephraim nodded, recalling how his own grandfather had spoken often about the circle of giving back, a cycle that honored the land as family. "The earth is patient, but it is not endless," Ephraim added. "We owe it our best care." Levi's story turned to an ancient practice, one that the community held dear. "Our fathers taught that tending the garden is like tending the soul. Each planted row is a prayer, every seed put lovingly into the ground, a hope sent forth. The waiting time, filled with morning dew and evening song, is our silent vigil. Though we might see no immediate fruit, this is not idleness. It is rather the very heart of faith lived out in soil." Miriam smiled, her eyes reflecting an inner light. The earth reminds us to slow down, to listen. Amos stood at the edge of the field, pointing to young bean plants climbing their supports. "See how they reach upward, holding steady against the wind? They do not hurry, but grow strong because they are steady and true. So must we be in our caretaking, persevering quietly day after day, even if the harvest is still unseen." Salome gathered a handful of delicate greens and held them up to the light. "They reward our patience with color and health, if only we tend them with patience," she said softly. Obadiah shared a tale from years past, when a season had been hard and the crops had faltered. "Our ancestors taught us to respect the signs, the earth's voice carried in the wind and rain. Patience was their answer, not despair. They learned that love for the land is shown in awaiting the right time, not in rushing to claim a quick yield." Ephraim listened intently, recalling his own struggles with moments of impatience and how the garden's slow wisdom had humbled him. The group's conversation shifted toward the practical everyday, watering gently, pulling weeds with care rather than haste, and knowing when to shelter seedlings from the sun's harshest rays. Miriam reminded them that each small act is a seed planted in the future, a testimony to faith in the earth's promise. The daily work might seem unremarkable, yet it built a tapestry of care that would unfold into abundance in due time. Levi recited a quiet reflection, voice steady and soft. "The act of waiting nourishes the spirit as much as the soil. Just as a prayer is offered without demand for answer, so too does the gardener tend, knowing that growth proceeds in its own holy time." Huldah nodded, adding, "This is the old wisdom. The earth and our souls turn slowly together, a dance of respect and restraint. Without such patience, there would be no harvest worth its worth." As the sun began to lower behind the distant hills, Ephraim looked once more at the rows of tender seedlings pushing through the earth. "Each day," he said, "we share our hearts with the soil, and in return, it gifts us promise. Even when the harvest feels distant, the care we give is itself a sacred act." Salome smiled, gathering the tools, and Amos offered a final piece of counsel. "Blessed is the one who listens to the earth, for their harvest is richer in both body and soul." With the garden tended, and the earth acknowledged for its quiet power. The community prepared to rest. The lessons of patience and surrender, of respectful listening and humble waiting, would carry them through the coming seasons. As night settled softly, the memory of days' work lingered, a living bond woven between hands, hearts, and the soil beneath. And so, with renewed reverence and gentle hope, they turned their gaze toward what awaited in the days ahead, ready to carry forth the wisdom that the earth had softly spoken. Daily care as a seed of future harvests. Ephraim Yoder sat on the edge of the wooden bench, the summer sun gently warming his weathered hands as he looked over the patchwork of earth before him. "Have you finished sowing all your seeds, or is there still more to plant?" he asked Salome Lapp, who was carefully arranging young green sprigs in the shaded corner. Salome smiled quietly, brushing a fly from her face. "There is still time, Ephraim. July is the month when the earth teaches patience and listening." Nearby, Amos Stoltzfus leaned on his hoe, nodding in agreement. He was the household's wise gardener, always ready to guide with quiet words. Levi Zook, the old storyteller of the village, wandered over with a story in his eyes. "Do any of you know what kind of soil you have? Is it sandy, rich black earth, or filled with stones that test our faith?" His question floated softly into the warm air. It reminded Ephraim how each hand that tended the soil must first understand what the soil offers. "My land is mostly loamy, with some patches stubborn and dry," Ephraim replied thoughtfully. "It speaks differently on every day." Miriam Byler, keeper of the ancient knowledge, gently added, "In July the soil welcomes a second wave of planting. It knows the rhythms of life better than we do." Hulda Troyer stepped forward, her voice steady and gentle, carrying the wisdom of many years. "Now is the time for red radishes and savory greens to take root," she explained. "Late carrots, too, with their slender fingers stretching deep beneath the soil. Beans can still be sown, dancing with promise under the July sun." Her words were warm, a balm for those who often hurried in other seasons and learned to slow their pace here. The earth does not hurry, and neither should we. It listens to the rhythm of each day, teaching us to honor patience as much as any other virtue. Obadiah King, older and slow-moving, leaned on a crooked cane, his eyes glistening with a gentle light. "Patience in the garden is much like patience in prayer," he whispered. "We place our trust in the soil and the Creator, knowing that unseen efforts will one day bear fruit. To rush is to demand gifts before their time, forgetting that growth is a sacred unfolding." His words settled over the group like a comforting quilt. Even without visible sprouts, each day's careful tending was a seed itself, sown deep in the roots of tomorrow's harvest. Salome knelt beside the growing beds, her fingers brushing the earth as if listening for its secrets. "It feels right to pause, to not exhaust the soil with overburdening," she said softly. "I learned this from Miriam, who reminds me that the earth responds best when we serve her gently without hurry." Ephraim's gaze shifted to the tender rows of young plants gleaming in the sunlight, each one a promise nurtured by steady hands. "To listen to the land," he said, "is to dialogue with something far older than us. Here is wisdom passed down by Levi and Miriam, and held in trust by each generation." Amos moved closer, his brow furrowed in thought. "July's second sowing is a second chance, too, an echo of spring's hope. Not every seed sprouted at first, and not every plan matured as we wished. The garden offers new rhythms, red radishes quick to show themselves, sweet greens bringing nourishment, and patient carrots stretching slowly beneath the soil. Beans, climbing with quiet strength, teach us resilience." He wiped a bead of sweat and added, "Caring in this month requires both watchfulness and a serene heart, the same heart we bring when we gather for evening prayers." Miriam's voice, clear and resolute, reminded them of the deeper connection behind toil. "Our ancestors spoke often of the earth as a living book," she said. "Each seed sown is a word written in faith, each day's work a sentence in the story of life. If you watch closely, you see that growth is not only in the harvest, but also in the waiting, the nurturing, and the patience we share with the soil. Her eyes met Ephraim's and Salome's, both feeling the weight and beauty of this precious cycle. Levi stepped back, drawing a breath as he imagined the generations before them. Every gesture, the turning of soil, the careful planting, these acts are prayers wrapped in effort. Even when roots are hidden beneath the surface, they grasp hold of the promise that spring taught us. Growth obeys kindness and time, not force. We inherit this lesson, and in following it, we bind ourselves to the land and to each other. His simple words wove the group tighter, reminding them that land and community pulse to the same rhythm. Huldah smiled with the gentle pride of one entrusted with sacred knowledge. "In July, the garden teaches humility," she said. "We plant knowing the sun and rain will do their work. We care each day whether or not the earth shows immediate yield. The repeated act of daily care, watering, weeding, watching, is itself a daily prayer. It builds trust in the slow rhythm of creation." Her eyes twinkled with hope as she looked toward the rows of tiny leaves stretching upward, resilience shining in their vibrant green. Obadiah clasped his hands with a tender sigh. The harvest is not just the fruit, but the lesson in patience and faith. Like prayer, it is a journey rather than a demand. Knowing when to sow and when to wait honors the land as our oldest teacher. We give with open hands, accepting in quiet hearts the rhythm of life. His voice seemed to echo in the stillness, comforting as the evening breeze. Ephraim felt that same calm settle deep within him, a quiet strength to carry forward. Salome straightened, planting a fresh row of beans before the sun dipped lower toward the horizon. "Each seed placed carefully is a seed of hope," she said gently. "Even if unseen at first, it grows with the care we offer daily. Our hands write the story of the garden page by page, season by season." Ephraim nodded, the truth of her words sinking between rows of earth and sky. As the day drew to a close, Amos gathered the tools with a look of quiet satisfaction. "Remember, this is not a hurried race, but a gentle walk beside the earth. Pay attention to the soil, the weather, and your heart. Trust that patience will reward our faith with abundance." Huldah and Obadiah joined him, their presence a circle of wisdom and care, spanning generations. Miriam glanced toward the horizon, where twilight painted the fields in soft shades of blue. Tomorrow, we look to the next task, the next moment of care and listening. The garden never rests, yet it asks only for steady love. With those words, the community felt renewed, ready to face the coming days with clear eyes and calm hearts. Levi's voice softened as he spoke last. "In the quiet of July's afternoon, we remember. The soil's song continues beneath every step, beneath every hand. Every whisper is a lesson. Every seed sowed in patience is a promise to new life." Ephraim stood slowly, feeling the earth's pulse beneath his feet, carrying the silent trust of one who knows the land is both teacher and friend. The warm light faded gently, inviting them all to rest. Yet in their hearts the garden's story carried on, a sacred weave of daily care and quiet faith that would lead them into the coming seasons. From these moments, love for the earth and its slow blessings grew deeply, unfolding naturally as the next chapter awaited.